Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin.
Welcome back to another episode, and this is our wrap-up of the Boss Babe series. I'm with Caitlin. What's up, Caitlin?
Hi, homie. Happy to be back. What's up, homies?
Okay, so we're wrapping up this year's Boss Babe series, and just talking about where we've been, the things that we enjoyed and whatnot, and I guess we're going to start off with a little bit of a follow-up to the last episode you would have heard with just me and Caitlin, because she wanted to say a little bit more. So we'll throw that out there. What you got?
So, last episode, that was just me and my homie Matt. We talked about women in the workplace. Maybe struggled through a little bit of a conversation with my personal experience about being a woman in the workplace in a male-dominated field. I don't know that I would have the same experiences. In fact, let me walk that back immediately, Matt. I would not have the same experiences or be treated the same way if I had a different genitalia in the workplace.
If you had a dick, you could say it.
Yeah. If I had a dick between my legs, I probably wouldn't be treated the same way that I have been. And I shared some of those experiences in the past episode. However, when we stopped hitting record, I had this inspiration to share a little bit of a story, continuing a little bit that conversation of being a woman in the workplace, but specifically, I think men and women can probably relate to this. I had a very unique situation that resulted in a LinkedIn post that I made recently. I have a new boss. In my line of work, I'm very passionate about mentorship in general. I'm very passionate about women mentoring other women. I'm very passionate about those who are in leadership positions being leaders versus managers. What's the difference between a leader and a manager, Caitlin, you might ask? In my personal experience, the difference between a leader and a manager is that a leader will never ask you to do anything that they are not willing to do themselves or they have not done in the past. A manager will try to shove a round peg in a square hole repeatedly, violently, regardless as to how it affects you personally, professionally, emotionally, whatever. So I wanted to share that once upon a time, I had a former boss. Very long time ago. Nobody that is currently my supervisor. In fact, the LinkedIn post that I made about this anecdote, one of my current bosses called me the next day and said, "Somebody sent this to me. Is this about me?" I said, "No. You will be very relieved to know this is not about you."
I love it.
I am a self-professed stove toucher. You can tell me all day long that the stove is hot. I will not learn that lesson until I touch the stove myself. Maybe more so a example of behavior and like my attitude towards advice in my teenage years. Now in my professional career, I have said to multiple bosses that first and foremost, I need like a peer support group for all people that have ever supervised me. I know I'm a lot. That's fine. However, I am a self-professed bull in a china shop. I have the best of intentions. I'm going to be doing things legally, ethically, always with the intent of doing things that make my team and my bosses look good. I had a former female civilian supervisor, Matt, and she had told me in prior employee reviews every year, she stood back and she said, Matt, or pretend you're me. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
She said, Caitlin, sometimes I just feel like we are two ships passing in the night. I think that we don't understand each other. I said, yeah, Yeah. Matt, this civilian supervisor had never been assigned to an investigative unit. She had never been an investigative analyst. She'd only been a data analyst. That is the difference between tell me who this felon hangs out with, where he goes to, and what his criminal history is, versus tell me why car crashes and T-bones keep happening at this specific intersection in the city that we were. Two completely different jobs. And she, as somebody who had never been an investigative analyst, was trying to tell me what to do with my job. And I kindly said, in all the respectful ways, understand where you're coming from, totally hear you out. However, you've never done this job, so what are we doing? In one of my peer review, that same conversation, that same employee review conversation where we had all these boxes and checks and needs review and all these other things, our raises come out as a result of these conversations. Typically, they're just a cost of living raise, whatever. I cracked a joke to her where I said, I understand that I am a lot. Specific to her being my supervisor. She was my civilian supervisor. I had a completely whole other chain of command of sworn officers, lieutenants, sergeants that I answered to day to day. So she didn't even really know what I was doing day to day. They, for whatever reason, did not give her any employee feedback about me that year. So she just had to have a conversation with me, and that was my employee review. With no feedback about the my regular chain of command. I said, hey, I admit I'm a lot. I always do things ethically. I always do things legally. I always do things with the best of intentions to make my job and my bosses look good. But I am a bull in a china shop. And she, in the most condescending way possible, said, well, Caitlin, the shop is there to sell china. I said, oh, okay. Well, that to me, from a foundational assumption of approaching future conversation, let me know that she is not necessarily open to hearing out my perspective. She's not open to hearing how I might have a different perspective of law enforcement. There was also this fun, political, personal, weird atmosphere of people that didn't like cops working for the police department at the same time. Real weird and difficult thing to navigate, Matt. I don't know if you've ever had a difficult boss that you had to figure out how to deal with. So that is my perfect example of somebody who has the best of intentions, who maybe likes me as a person, and I liked her as a person. But she did not want to encourage me and play on my strengths. She wanted to fit me, a square peg in her round hole definition of what my job is supposed to be, having never done it before. Enter my new boss, Matt. My new boss for my new group here in St. Louis. I cracked the same thing, the same line of jokes. I said, listen, probably should have a peer group of people that have supervised me before. I had an old lieutenant who said, I would rather rein you in occasionally than try to motivate you every single day. Unapologetically, I am a loud woman, and I know what the fuck I'm talking about sometimes. Not all the time. I'll be the first to admit if I don't. I said, hey, new boss, always do things legally. Always do things ethically. Always do things with the best of intentions and try to make my team look good and you look good as my boss. I am a bull in a china shop. And without missing a beat, Matt, he said, I don't mind cleaning up glass.
Yeah.
Let it be known, I will already happily go to war for him. That is possibly a small example. I just wanted to bring up this anecdote because specific to our conversation about women in the workplace, it's an interesting conversation to be had because this female supervisor, I would hope that in a very progressive city, on a very progressive police department, my female civilian supervisor would have my best of intentions. She would be a trusted person. She would be a safe space. She turned around to use me for her own political agenda. whatever. Neither here nor there. That's fine. There is a difference between being a leader and a manager. I know in my heart of hearts, Matt, we've had conversations on prior episodes about how you have been a supervisor before. I got a lot of growing up to do before I would ever even seriously approach being a supervisor. I don't really want to settle office spats. I want to do my job and help put bad guys and girls in jail and prison where they belong. But if you ever have a boss who is a leader, who you know is not asking you to do something because they don't want to do it or they have never done it, hold on to them, cherish them. And sometimes just because somebody is the same gender as you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to have your best intentions at heart. It's difficult gender-wise, one way or the other. And again, I'll footnote all of this too, Matt. I was very aware of this in our last conversation of like, I don't know how much of this is a me specific weird situation just because I am a loud woman that works in a male dominated field. But difference between leaders and managers. And I hope that at the end of my career, if I ever am in a supervisor position, that I will be a leader and not a manager.
That's fair. Well, thank you for sharing. Yeah. The continuation of last week's conversation. Glad you got some time. You said you wanted to make time to share it, so wanted to definitely make sure we did that. And usually when we try and make time for stuff, we usually do it at the end and then we completely forget. So we didn't completely forget. But yeah. So, jumping ahead, I guess, to like the Boss Babe stuff. I want to say it was awesome that you were on all but one interview. So congratulations. Hopefully you learned some stuff about interviewing and the seeing the guests of different backgrounds and, hopefully you had fun with that.
Let me just turn around and give us back pats. Definitely a growing pain. We both have had experience being solo interviewers. This season or this series, the second iteration of Boss Babes, was the first time that we had so many interviews where we were co-hosts. There were some growing pains, There were also moments where I had to let go of emotion and just hear your feedback and just hear you and meet you where you were at and not take it personally. Of like, hey, don't talk over me. Granted, Matt, I still talk over you sometimes. I don't
care if you talk over me. Don't talk over them.
Very true. But I want to say that it's this iteration of Boss Babes was extra fun because you did invite me along for so many dual interviews. I think that's also an extra a different level of this podcast and this creative outlet that we both have and the topics of conversation that you have helped platform, that being able to work off of each other and both of us ask difficult questions, where on several of these Boss Babes interviews we've had our interviewees be like, man, that's a good question from both of us, which I'm very, very proud of. Good.
I'm glad you found something to be proud of. I personally don't care if you talk over me. It's talking over them. That's I don't it never bothers me because if my point is valid enough to make or my thing is valid enough to say, I'll just wait till you're done and then say whatever I got to say because it makes no difference to me. But like I said, I'm glad that you got to do so many and it hopefully gives you the confidence to jump in to those interviews more, especially as they might come down the road. Because I think that's the hardest part about interviewing is being able to jump into them and not be afraid to ask a question or not be afraid to say this. It's just, we're here, we're having a conversation. That's what it is. So yeah.
Yeah. I also have a little bit of a secret for Homes Room listeners. There were several of these interviews that Matt, my homie, intentionally kept me in the dark about some of these interviews, the ways they were going to go, the paths they were going to take. And I so appreciate that, because you have the emotional intelligence of like, you know what? Let's do it. It's me as your co-host having trust in you and the vision that you have for this, the fun adventure and everything that we've done for over a year of recording episodes here at Holmes Room. There were a couple episodes here in Holmes Room, or like this new series of Boss Babe interviews, where I was like, all right, I'm here. We're just showing up. I feel bold enough and brave enough to jump in and ask another interview. But you also, I think, did a really good job of forcing me. Obviously, we've talked about it in multiple episodes, Matt. I'm a strong personality. Sometimes I just need to be forced into a position of vulnerability and like a new perspective, and hearing new things out and hearing new perspectives out. So that was also one thing about this Boss Babe series that I really enjoyed. As much as we try to be informed and do our homework about our interviewees and our joint interviews together, I also really enjoyed just coming to the table, meeting you and your wonderful Boss Babe friends that you wanted to introduce me to for the first time, and just being along for the ride. I think it's more enjoyable as podcasts and like interviewees. It's super easy to get into a position of like over prepared. Mm-hmm. You do too much homework. You're calling it in on the interview. And I think that there were enough opportunities here where I was just like, all right, I trust you, Matt. You invited me here to be your co-host for a reason. Let's just buckle up and hang tent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the range of people that we interviewed, I think, is what was awesome about this last like iteration, where it's still the same kind of thing as it was the first time, but it's still fresh. And I hope that everybody out there enjoyed and learned something, not just us as interviewers, but like, taking something from Kim about, starting a business and starting pretty much from scratch during COVID, which is crazy in itself, or, from Angie and, how she had a kid really young, but didn't let that stop her. She did what she had to do to be a good mom. And then once she was in a position where she was like, okay, I want to try this, she was brave enough to just like put on that hat and say, I'm gonna go do it. And then, with like the Sex Reimagined girls, like it's so fun to talk to them in general. And that was just a fun interview all around. So, it's people that are doing stuff because they choose to. And that's what not only this podcast, but specifically the Boss Babes thing is about, is, just like doing things your way, not the way that they were laid out and the way that they were supposed to be. Like, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, no arranged marriages or situational advantages. Just, this is what I want to do, and I'm free to do it, and nobody's going to stop me. And, those women are the women that we like want to celebrate, especially during the Boss Babes, like Lala Fox and, her path to being drag racer and winning events that she's won. Like that's really awesome. But also to have started from, her dad being into it is still fine. It doesn't matter that she didn't get into it on her own. She was inspired, and then she found it, years later, and was like, yeah, this is something I still love this enough that this is going to be my thing. I'm going to do this. And she found a platform doing it. So, like I said, all of the interviews and all the things that like we did with this one, I'm really excited for what listeners get out of it, even if they don't tell us what they get out of it. Hopefully, there's things that they're like, man, that was really good, or man, that was really fun to hear. So yeah, I don't know. Has there so far been anything that you've, like listened back to or heard that you were like, man, that sticks out, or during an interview that just like jumped out to you and like you just held on to, like, man, that was a good interaction?
What jumped out most to me doing this latest iteration of Boss Babe was interviewing Sex Reimagined for the second time. Being in a position of having some rapport with them already, I felt like lend itself to a more in-depth conversation. a more in-depth interview, a more in-depth conversation about sexuality, self-love, self-expression. It was also, for me personally as an interviewer, so validating to explain to them what my high school experience was of modest as hottest. I was born and raised in the Bible Belt, and to see both of their faces be like,
well, you realize that you're the type of person that they're trying to reach, correct?
100%.
So like that's not like, to me, it's not surprising because you are the, in fact, person they are talking to, people that don't have that experience, that didn't understand it, and are struggling through life as, you know, a 30 something or a 20 something or, you know, a 40 something or a 50 something, because they want to give you that like empowerment and understanding that like it's okay to feel how you feel, it's okay to do the things that you want to do. And like, to me, it's always funny because you've said that enough times in those conversations that every time they say it, or every time you say it, I can tell that for the rest of the interview they like you, and they are going to continue to hone in on anything you say. So it's just like the like level of like engagement that you get just because you say that is always so wild to me.
Which, to even be, homie, I turned 30 a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
To embrace a position of vulnerability, to even be in this platform, to publicly, to the depths of the black hole of the internet, say, in high school, I was told that modest is hottest, and you are only a valid, desirable female if you cover yourself up and wait for virginity. Yes, I am probably the intended audience of all of these people, but it's also another testament to how me trusting you and trusting your vision for the Holmes Room podcast and all these interviews and the ways that the directions that you want to take us, I would not have experienced that. I would not have that moment of realization as an adult woman who adores the wonderful ladies of Sex Reimagine. Yes, that was our second interview. I hope we have at least a billion more interviews with them. That's how much I adore them. And that's how much fun that we have while we are sitting there talking to them. If I would have thought from my 2012 high school senior, modest as hottest, indoctrinated Bible Belt, just struggling and trying to figure out how to be a woman without a mom, if I would have thought that would have been a topic of conversation that I would have had on a platform like this when I turned 30, I would have probably passed out and died from shock. Okay? It is such, yes, I am the intended audience. And for you, it's super, yes, it is very funny for me to hear you say that, well, duh, you're the intended audience. Yes, I'm probably the intended audience. I didn't realize that till you just said that. There are a lot of women like me that I interact with on the daily now. There are a lot of women that are still trying to deconstruct and deprogram those ideals and those purity, cultural, whatever things that were shoved down their throats when they were young, impressionable teenage girls just trying to make it in the world and seek adult validation. So Sex Reimagined, to me, to be able to speak that sentence out loud, hear their feedback, see the shock register on their faces, and for the first time be like, oh, that was maybe a weird thing I was told. That was maybe a super weird cultural thing that I don't want my fucking daughter anywhere
shout out to Dr. Willow Brown and Leah Piper, but also April said the same thing, man. Like when we
Yes.
talked to April, and because to them that's like just such an alien thing, and it's like, ooh, child, like let me hug you, because it is a weird thing to say, but also like for some people that may still be the way that they understand the world and the teachings that they hold, but like for somebody who is ultimately trying to broaden their horizons, even if it isn't to change what they do in their marriage or to change what they do in relationships or to change what they do in the bedroom, like none of that what it is the fact that like you're willing to have those conversations, and that has nothing to do with me. That's 100% on you. I ask you, do you want to do this interview? I don't say, we're doing this interview, they're scheduled this time, you have no fucking choice, we're doing it. I say, hey, do you want to do it? And you have the autonomy to say, no, I'm not comfortable. So like, give yourself credit just as much as you're sending credit this way. Because again, it comes down to what you're choosing to do. Just like the people that choose to listen to these episodes, they are choosing to like take the risk of like feeling uncomfortable. And, you know, I'm sorry if I make you uncomfy every once in a while in these episodes, but like ultimately that's the point. And I keep saying it, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And those are those moments that like you need to realize and give yourself credit for, because like legitimately like you're uncomfortable, and it's to me visible when you're uncomfortable. So I'm like, okay, but also we're not going to shy away from this, because this is the conversation that like will open up your mind and be like, oh damn, I was in this conversation and that made me think, or oh damn, I was in this conversation and I have a question, let me just say. And that's what it's about for not only you but everybody out there listening.
You know, I try to keep it G, but just right there with that compliment, you made me tear up a little bit. Perfect example of how Matt knows and can see on my face, and probably all of you can see on my face or hear in my voice when I'm immediately uncomfortable. As soon as we were done, as soon as we hit stop with our latest interview with Sex or Imagine, he said, one of them said, stick a finger up the butt, and I could see immediately you got so uncomfortable.
Red. I knew you were going to say
like,
that.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, and that's, yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for saying, like, yes, I have the autonomy. Yes, it's just as it takes two to tango here in this fun dynamic in these interviews. I appreciate you saying that, because that is.
I thought she was going to turn so red the camera wasn't going to pick up her face anymore, because it was immediate and it was visceral. It was so funny, but yes. she was a solid co-host and rode with it and then cycled back around. You know, so like that's the point, is uncomfortable conversations with friends, and you handled it well. And again, shout out to Dr. Willow Brown and Leah Piper for, you know, coming on and hanging out and, you know, educating and making Caitlin uncomfortable and all of the things in between.
Do it more.
Yeah, you know, when I think back to our interview with Kim, I think about how like inspirational that one was, and I'm super curious as like for you, when like you left that interview, did you feel like it was just another, you know, I guess interview that we've done, or did you walk away from it and be like, damn, that is one like badass chick and I'm super impressed by what she's managed to do?
Definitely more of the latter. It was a little bit of a reality check of me lately falling into the monotony of like toddler parenthood and a job and 9 to 5 and all those things. And then we talked to Kim and I was like, damn, like, take the skirt off, get your shit done. We have work to do. I so admire that. And then what I also really like leaned into.
Shout out Vicious Sweethearts.
Oh my God. Please help me keep my plants alive. Good God. I do not have a green thumb. I have a brown thumb. Okay. But it was in the last couple months, I've had these like moments in motherhood where I'm like, holy shit, I am so glad that this is the world that my daughter gets to grow up in. And that was one of them where I was like, this is the world. Like, shout out to Kim 100%. But for so many other women like her to be as driven and passionate and give themselves a chance and put some work behind a dream and all of those things, it really made me comforted and a little bit relieved too, that like my daughter, who is basically a feral raccoon, she is 3 years old as of last month. Jesus H. Christ, somebody help me. But I know that as a loud
bubble
woman,
gave you a thumbs down. Sorry, dude, continue. That was just, I had to point it out. Even the little like emoji bubble thing that we can't figure out just gave her a thumbs down on her kid being a feral raccoon.
If you're just listening, my video feed gives like random like reactions. I don't know. I hopped on the call to record this episode and Matt got greeted with a fistful of fucking balloons. I don't know. But just now when I said it as a feral raccoon, there's a random thumbs down. Whatever. All right. iPad. Sorry that I don't have a fully gracious experience with motherhood. Okay. However, as a loud woman who is very clearly raising another loud woman, I am so relieved and happy that this is something that I've embarked on, something that you've allowed me to join in on, to meet some of your wonderful friends, to shake up my perception of what loud women in today's world look like, what they're doing. And then, I don't know, it gives me comfort because I think that it is inevitable that my daughter will explore the depths of the internet. I am hoping that there are other wonderful, strong, loud women who believe in themselves and invest in their dreams like Kim has done. And I'm very proud. I'm super excited. I hope that my daughter clings and is drawn to other women like that. But it was more of a reality check where I was like, damn, bitch, cut out the sad sack shit. Like, we got work to do. It's like, all right, okay. It was very like energizing and empowering to do that interview with her.
Yeah, and that's what I hope that, you out there listening, like, these episodes are for you. We are recording episodes for you to listen to. So hopefully you get inspired when you hear, those stories. If you haven't heard that one, The Vicious Sweetheart, go back and, check it out. Best part about this podcast is nothing is in order. Very rarely is there like a follow-up or like a continuation conversation. So, and if there is, usually I release it the same day. So it's the same thing. You don't have to worry about it. And it'll be called Staying Late. Like, check out any of them and then, go back to last year's, anything that dropped, that had a Boss Babe tag on it. We continue to do, interviews and episodes and all that kind of stuff, regardless of, whether it's Boss Babes or not, or Halloween or whatever. Like, we did Christmas ones, like all of those things that like are themed. Most importantly, they're just still good conversations with a friend, good conversations to get your mind maybe going, or just to have like a laugh in the morning or the evening or on the way home, whatever, because that's kind of the point. And with this, iteration of Boss Babes, I think the interviews hit a little bit harder. There was a little bit more attitude with all of the guests as opposed to, whatever. And I don't know if that was by design or just I got lucky with the people that wanted to do interviews. But, I think to April's interview, and that one made me really happy because it was like, I like swear to everything holy and unholy, whichever way you want to look at it, that I was listening to an episode where she was on somebody else's podcast, and I was like, I kind of want to interview this person because I am like infatuated with the way she thinks. She's hitting points that like I feel, and very rarely do I hear other people have an outlook on information the way that I do. And, people want to talk about validation and all this other stuff. And to me, I don't ever really need validation on like things that are like a feeling, because to me, I feel how I feel. Nobody in any way, shape or form can tell me that I don't or do feel the way that I feel. Like, I know that I feel the way that I feel, so I'm okay with that. The only thing I ever feel validation from is things that are disputed as fact. Like, if I said the sky is blue and everybody came around and said, no, the sky is purple, and one person came around and said, oh, the sky looks a little blue to me, that would be validating, because it's like, okay, see, I'm glad, like, I'm not the only one. And that's what she did a lot of, is things that like I just see a certain way. It's not about feeling, it's about the interpretation of the facts put forward and how things are played out and how it's a mess in some situations. And she just hit on a lot of those in the interview that I heard her on. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to shoot my shot. I'm going to send an email and be like, hey, I loved what you had to say on this podcast, and I really want you to do an interview if you would be interested in it, because, XYZ, And she responded and was like, hey, I listened to, the XYZ episode you put out, and I really enjoyed this thing. And yeah, I would love to be on your show. And, like, we made that connection. And I think it's very me-like to be able to feel somebody's energy through a podcast episode. And that thing in itself hopefully conveys across in some of these interviews to you, where you're just like, man, I like that person. Like, Kim specifically is local to me. She's somebody that I see at least once a month, depending on what's going on in our, like, world that month. But I see her, I can interact with her, but like, to have her on this, immortalized as a boss babe on this show, and she can say, I was on this show, go listen to it, this, that, and the other thing. And ironically enough, the episode that we recorded was the anniversary of her shop opening, the day of, and that was wild. And when I schedule out episodes, I don't put any thought into it, except for like maybe a little bit of a, like when somebody builds an album and they try and stack interviews in like order of, like which ones might do better, which ones might not, which ones like might need more build up to them, or might flow better in an order or not in order. And I was like, I'm going to put yours on the 19th of August. So I messaged her, like I message everybody I do. I tell them when it's scheduled. And she said, that's my dad's birthday. And I was just like, it was friggin' meant to be, I guess. So like, that thing again is like, hopefully all of those moments pay off in making it a good episode, and you guys have listened to it and resonate with something that she says, or even better, go get a tattoo from her, because like, that's the thing. Or commission some art or something. Her story about the, tattooing somebody with autism, like, that was probably the most like, oh, like, I just want, like, that's the kind of person that I want next to me in any fucking room, because I know beyond every other measure that's a real thing. That's not I'm putting it on because I want people to think, or I'm putting it on because, it's going to make me money, or it's going to get me somewhere. Like, she didn't have to tell that story. That's the story that popped into her head when she thought about the question, and I love that. Just like April, her episode dropping in the way that it did, we had this conversation, 4 weeks ago, I think, right? So like, we just it just happened, and it's going to be releasing, for us in our timeline, like in a week. So not next week, but or not this week, but the next week. And I think it's rare that we turn an episode around that quick, but I'm excited personally to hear that conversation back, just because she was funny. She did an on-air tarot reading for us, which was like completely unexpected, but awesome. And, she connected and, wanted to like share her like rawness in a way that I'm glad that she did, and was super jazzed. And anytime we can get somebody leaving an interview super jazzed, like, I think we did our job. It's just about, you on the other side of the microphone, doing your job, and like listening and hearing it and being like, yo, let's fucking go. Like, I accept that. I appreciate that. So like, to all of my bi folks out there, she's one of those people that like is out there trying to like bang on the drum of bi representation. So, this one's, here's to you, and, just existing and owning up space, or taking up space and owning, the area in which you exist, because you need to. And I'm proud to have had somebody on here that like, that's what they do. So, I just can't say enough about your ability to jump into those conversations, even though you're uncomfortable. And like, I love when you like, I can tell you get to like, almost like a like overstimulated person. You get to that point, and like, you'll ask a question that steers the conversation in a different direction. And I don't know if it's intentional or if it's by happenstance, but I always love that, because there's probably people out there listening that are also like, okay, like let's pull it back a little bit. And that's the whole point of wanting a co-host, because I see and perceive facts a certain way, you see facts and perceive them a certain way, and hopefully we hit two sides of the same coin, so nobody feels left out or nobody feels misrepresented, except for the people that we're not really giving a voice to on the show. And you shouldn't feel represented or have a voice, in my opinion. You have enough of that everywhere else, so fuck the whole way off. I don't know. But you know, like I said, I just hope that those conversations for you inspire you, and, you know, maybe give you something to, like, I don't want to say aspire to, but something to, like, I guess, bring it full circle for you in raising a daughter and having conversations that, like, you wish you would have had and didn't know how to have or didn't have the resources to have, where now, like, maybe you're more open to, like, I'll listen to this podcast because I know that person. Or Sex Reimagined has an episode where, like, somebody is talking about, like, talking to your kids about sex or whatever. Mm-hmm. And because you know them, because you've heard them, and you know they wouldn't necessarily put out something that's, like, not helpful information, like, you're more inclined to be like, oh, hey, let me listen to that. And I think that that's the big thing.
No, 100%. It's such a weird thing for me as a very type A personality. And to your, like, to your point of, you know, sometimes the questions that I ask maybe are turning things to a different direction of conversation. Full transparency, when we sit down to record these episodes, it's later in the day, later in the evening, my kids are in bed. 100% fully will own that my ADHD...
She turns on a red light and it gets... No, I'm joking.
My ADHD meds have started to wear off. So it genuinely is so important that I sit down, do my homework about who we're interviewing. But again, another testament of to be in a weird position of, like, you know, sometimes I'm just at the mercy of, like, the directions that my brain wants to go. I have vomit of the mouth sometimes, specifically as somebody who was diagnosed late in adulthood with ADHD and has only just recently in the last 2 years embraced the need for medication and seeing that relying on medication to be able to function at a job is not necessarily a weakness. 100%. I see and appreciate that you have invited me to be your co-host. And sometimes I just ask the questions because I'm like, I'm going to lose sleep tonight if I don't ask this question and I don't get some kind of insight about what a possible answer is. Because if I don't ask this question and I don't get an answer, I'm probably going to sit here and ruminate on all the 30,000 different other potential responses that maybe I would get. So thanks, homie. But also, you know, sometimes it is kind of like rolling off into, like, a different topic of conversation. But that's another thing too, is, like, sometimes when you give me, you know, their social media profiles or, like, their websites, some of our interviewees, the things that you do tell me about them, it's so interesting to me as your co-host how you and I can see the same content, like see the same words on a web page and see the same book reviews, see the same social media posts, and you and I interpret those through different lived experiences. And probably at least once, if not twice, every single Boss Babes interview that we did together, it was just entertaining for me to sit back and watch you go through your list of questions and be like, oh, that's a really good question. I'm so excited to hear what your answer is going to be. Knowing that, like, you and I watched, like, saw the same things and different things stood out to us. But yeah, it's a super enlightening experience. And yeah, full transparency. If you also kind of have more vomit of the mouth when your Concerta wears off after business hours, I see you. I validate you. I am you.
You know, like I said, the big thing is, like, wrapping up this Boss Babe series is we are you know, content creators, I guess, if that's what you want to like lump us in the like market of. But more importantly, we're like humans, and the human experience is what we're trying to, I guess, put out there. And I was recently going over, like, you know, feeling like my writing isn't landing with people or whatever, and like, does that make me a bad writer? And then like you spiral in that regard, or this, that, and the other thing. And then when I think about the performance of some of the episodes of this podcast and some of the other things, something that I like have to reframe is, I'm not a bad podcaster. I'm not a bad this. I'm a terrible advertiser. And that's something that I've never claimed to know a goddamn thing about. So I can merchandise like a motherfucker because that's what I love to do, but I cannot market for shit. So we require you out there to help us market, because I'm terrible at it. So let's crowdsource that bitch and make it so that, you know, if you found something fun in any of these Boss Babe episodes, you were like, oh damn, like I liked that person, and you go follow them, share our episode, share a clip and be like, hey, I just started following this person because I heard you on Home's Room. And that might make them more inclined to, you know, be like, oh shit, I need to check that out. Because for us on this side of it, we're you know, enjoying having a conversation. You know, for you, it's a creative outlet. It just becomes, you know, one of those things where we are doing service, I guess, if you want to call it that way, an act. And for you on the other side, if we're saying something that like makes you feel good, share it. If we're saying something that makes like sense to you, share it. Like that's the biggest way. I just had a call with somebody that handles our like recording software, and they asked me that question about, you know, like the marketing thing and like whether I feel like this works or that works. And I was like, honestly, I think we get more like bumps in listens and, you know, anything when people engage on social media and share it themselves, not by the things that I post, not by the things that, you know, you post. Like I honestly, like those numbers are so consistent to where I could tell that they don't really like make a difference. What does make a difference is when I see somebody else share a post that I forgot about, or I didn't post, or they, you know, share the like this episode just dropped to their story, and then I noticed an increase there. And those are the things that we need you to do, because that's how this is going to continue to grow. And I'm going to do my best to try and figure out some sort of advertising, or, you know, I'm gonna have to try and figure out how to hire a producer who does it for me, because yeah, like that's where we're at. I got told we are I guess to backspace a little bit on that, congratulations to Dr. Willow Brown and Leah Piper, because they just hit 100 episodes. So they posted something today in our timeline about it, and that's awesome. They say like only like 10% of the podcast get past episode 9. And on this call that I was on for our software, shout out to Riverside, I was talking about how we have 70 something episodes. When this one comes out, it'll be closer to like 80 episodes. So like maybe next year we'd hit 100, and that's like awesome, I guess. But also to him, he was like, yo, you know, that puts you in like the top 99.9 percentile of podcasts, because most podcasts don't get past 10, and then of the ones that get past 10, they don't get past, most of those don't get past like somewhere between like 24 and like 34 or something like that is what he said. But yeah, no, we absolutely rely on you listening, and if we're not putting out episodes that you like, or if the topics are bad, then like we need you to be like, yo, we like the episodes like this more, or hey, this is a topic that I think you guys should touch on more, because that's how we're going to continue to put out episodes you like. If you like us and you think we're funny, or you think we're giant fucking goofballs, or you think we're idiots on the internet with you know, microphones in front of our face, and you enjoy that part of it, then like tell us that, because that's what we need to know to make these episodes fun and exciting for you. Or if you're like, yo, do more interviews and, you know, talk about this or talk about that, or try and get interviews like this because this is a thing that I'm into. You're like, I want to do underwater crocheting, and that's a new fad. I want to get more information on. I'm gonna go search for some underwater crocheters because I never heard of that, and I think it'd be fun to talk to that person because that seems really difficult because I can't crochet, and underwater seems even more difficult. So good on them. But no, like I said, for real, we need everybody, to help build this as a community, and continue to message us and be like, hey, I like that episode, or hey, like, how do I listen? Where are you at? Because I think a lot of the time, like, it's access to the episodes, and if you don't know where we're at, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Castbox, I think is that one, and that one's literally only on there for one person who said, hey, I only listen to podcasts on Castbox, and I was like, I never even heard of that. So like, they're everywhere. Google Podcast isn't a thing anymore, just so you know. So if you had Google, it is now YouTube is where that feed went. So you can listen on YouTube if you want to listen on YouTube. YouTube Music, I think, is what it technically is under, but it pops up on our YouTube page, which is linked in our show notes. So yeah.
So basically, Matt, you're saying that barring messenger pigeon or smoke signals.
Nope, just smoke signals. I will figure out messenger pigeons. Just smoke signals, because that doesn't work far distances. That only works in immediate areas.
Let's fucking go. If you have a different format or platform, again, another wonderful testament. Yeah, whatever. We're close to 80 episodes here. I don't even know what episode I joined in on, homie. I just know that we've been recording episodes together for over a year at this point. Wrapping up Boss Babes, the second iteration of it. I'm very excited for the third. I'm very excited for next year, for the next iteration of our Boss Babes interview. But I also want to give you a shout out because
episode 7, and then you came back on episode 11.
Wow.
I have a notebook right in front of me that has all of the schedule, that has our episode schedules. So
those sweet summer children that were in episode 7 and episode 11, if they only could see us now.
I mean,
Holmes' room.
It was like March, so it was like winter. It was spring.
Okay.
Spring children, spring children. See, it makes sense.
Dude, the dad jokes.
I'm a dad. Sorry.
I know you are.
And I'm that dad. Not sorry.
I swear to God, you and my husband would be fucking besties. Holmes' Room Podcast would not be Holmes' Room Podcast without Matt Holmes. Thank you for having a bug in your ass one day to start a podcast, to have difficult conversations that maybe Midwestern corn-fed bitches who are told and indoctrinated in modest as hottest Bible thumping ways in high school will really see, appreciate, and get to chew through for the first time in adulthood, and especially as mothers. Thank you for creating a platform where we're having some of these difficult conversations, where you're not just supporting women, calling out other men for toxic masculine behavior that are not hearing other women, but having this perspective of treat every day like a class. Yeah. I also think that's one thing in adulthood that we kind of lose touch in. I definitely saw it in my parents of like, I know everything. I don't need to sit here and learn. Nope. Everybody, every day, treat every day like a class. You can learn something new every single day. So since going into this adventure and being your co-host, that is definitely one thing that I've embraced, where I'm like, you know what? If I ever think I'm the smartest person in the room and I don't have something to learn from everybody else that's in here, I'm in the wrong room and I'm probably full of shit. I need to go sit down, have a snack, take a nap.
Yeah. I hope that people out there also have taken the every day as a class, go learn something part of the closing of the show to heart. Not because I want to be like, hey, I did something. My ego is big, but not that big, despite what people might say. But because I genuinely hope that people, like, 3 things that I've tried to remind myself of, and just like the last week, is, like I said, I'm not a bad this, I'm not a bad that, I'm a bad marketer. Like that's where I falter. So I need to go learn about some marketing. But also, like, for me, what I might think my standard of good is, or what I might think my standard of, like, this is how it should be executed, whatever, I'm trying hard. If I'm doing XYZ, I have to constantly remind myself that other people, while their standards might not hit my standards, they might be trying as hard as they can. And I have to give them the credit for that, because for me, that needle might not have moved as far as I would wanted to see, but the needle moved maybe as far as they, could move it. And that's even 10 steps past what they thought. So I have to actively think that new way of thinking, new way of learning every single day. And then I also have to realize that in the situation of being able to choose or not choose, you kept giving me credit for having you on. And again, at any point in time, you're not bound by anything. You could just be like, hey, I'm done, I'm out. And that's entirely your choice. And it's not a you're bound to this thing. And I think that that's the other thing that I kind of have to, like, shift my brain about in general and learn every day, is that choice is always there, even when it doesn't appear to be, just simply because you're in a situation and you're like, damn it, this sucks. It sucks, but what little things can you control about this to maybe make it a little bit better? And then you build and stack those pennies from that point forward. So again, it's learning every day and realizing, damn, this thing might change, or that thing. It doesn't mean you're going out and you're learning, like a new language or math, or the new math if you're in schools with kids,
Dude,
or any of that kind of stuff. It means that you're picking up a new skill, a new way of thinking, a new anything that wasn't there the day before. So that's that.
I am treat every day like a Holmes room. You are never the smartest person in the room. Get uncomfortable, have those uncomfortable conversations, and thank you, homies, for hanging out with us. Thank you for those of you who listened to the first iteration of Boss Babes. Fast forward, this is now our second series. We're going to do another one next year. This is, coming from a broken family, I have very few holiday traditions, This is quickly becoming a regular holiday tradition for me. Whatever, there's no holiday here, whatever. So if you have a boss babe, if you are here as a regular listener of Holmes Room, you know what qualifies to be a boss babe. We want to platform them, we want to shine light on them, we want to validate them and celebrate them. So if you have somebody that you believe would be a great fit for our next iteration of the Boss Babe series, please send us Instagram messages, send us emails, send us DMs, reach out to us, leave comments on our Instagram posts. Maybe, I guess, send a messenger pigeon to Matt because he wants to figure those out. But we want to create content and give those interviews that you guys are super excited and interested in listening to. So, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And thank you, Matt, for creating the Holmes Room podcast.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody that did an interview with us. Thank you. Hopefully you loved hearing your episode, and hopefully you listened to some of the other ones and, loved hearing those. The big thing for me is that you realize that we are like glorified cheerleaders. So we just loved you so much that we wanted to hear and have an hour of your time, and are so thankful and grateful to have had you on. So thank you. And with that, bye.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.